Mr. PB's in a pretty bad spot. His wife left him, his only kid thinks he's a deadbeat, he's into some hard narcotics, and in all honesty, he's down bad, even more so than Jerry, and that's saying a whole lot. The season 7 premiere explores friendship in its entirety, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let me explain.
The Big Dipper.
The Smith family are tired of PB's antics since he's been crashing with them and just being a bum. So they decide to ask Rick to deal with him since they are friends. Instead of just having a one-on-one with him, Rick feels the need to recruit other people in order to have a decent intervention. When he finally finds his crew, he tells them about PB's problems. Mr. Butthole has essentially turned into a raging alcoholic. I think the whole point of Rick getting his friends to deal with this is so that he doesn't have to carry the burden of the situation on his own. This is Rick after all. He means well, even though sometimes his methods are iffy. Everyone he recruits needed this outing in one way or another. Bird Person needs an escape from his ungrateful daughter. Squanchy, well, Squanchy just needs to be around people cause who knows what this dude will do if he spends too much time by himself. Remember what happened the last time we saw him? I can't decide who's more self-destructive, him or Rick. Rick even asks for Gene to pitch in. The one thing about this group of friends is that it's highly volatile, mostly because of Rick being selfish half the time, but for whatever reason, they still avail themselves to one another. These guys mesh so well together because they are so different. That's often how toxic relationships work. As cliche as it might sound, opposites do indeed attract. Bird Person is so composed, whereas Squanchy likes to squanch all over the place and squanch himself when no one's watching. Gene is pretty much this show's Ned Flanders, and Rick is a walking black hole. He sucks the life out of everything. The plot of this episode is to have an intervention, but Rick being Rick, he thinks he can outmaneuver PB and trick him into having one. Things don't go according to plan, and instead Mr. Poopybutthole throws him a curveball and says it's his birthday, essentially guilt-tripping Rick into feeling bad. Rick falls for the bait and pretends as though this outing they're all having was premeditated as a surprise for his escape the womb day. Everyone's sharing experiences, and for a brief moment it's almost as though their hardships are what's keeping them together. Take Bird Person for example. His daughter is straight up an asshole. It's kinda morbid to think about it, but that's what makes these friendships so compelling. You feel like as much as though the other person can get underneath your skin in a weird way you can't do without them. For example, Rick and Bird Person. This has to be the most toxic duo in the entire series. Rick pretty much almost sabotaged this dude's entire life for his own benefit. But here they are still hanging out. Mr. PB is a prime example of how to handle a toxic person. Okay, maybe his approach isn't the best, but I mean if you're dealing with someone like Rick, you kind of have to rage in order for them to get the picture. As he confronts Rick for being fake and trying to half-ass an intervention under the guise of a birthday party, I just couldn't help feeling bad for both parties. Rick is the type of person who will laugh at you when you fall and trip, but he'll still help you on your feet. The only positive thing about a friend group like this is that when you really need them, they'll still lift you up. Even though in order for you guys to meet at a resolve, the prior steps might be destructive. For example, in this case, Hugh Jackman and the rest of them are egging Poopybutthole to do one of two things: keep drinking or find his wife who's now left him and try to win her affection back. But taking one look at these guys, you can just tell they wouldn't mind downing some shots of tequila to drown their woes. I think the conclusion to this episode is somewhat relatable. Rick pulled up his socks and did the right thing for his friend when the time came. Yeah, sure, he might have committed a crime and scared Poopy Jr., but meh, can we blame Rick? His friend's ex-wife was getting her pink fortress conquered by this abomination. The final scene showcases just how deranged and convoluted friendships can be. Rick and PB were confronting each other just a while ago, but now they're in a parking lot embracing the moment. Is this relationship healthy? Of course not. Does it hit close to home? I'm afraid so. Here's some word of advice. Be like this deranged character whose name still catches me by surprise. Learn to confront assholes. Keep them in line. I wouldn't outright lash out at them because deep down inside, we all know they're suffering from some severe trauma. I like how at the beginning of the episode, Rick mentions that he's carrying out a task that involves his dead wife. As we all know, Rick is the embodiment of psychological damage. So this lines up with my previous point perfectly. Maybe you and that person you've been playing mind games with might one day reminisce about the good times in our parking lot. But then again, if there's no signs of rekindling anything, tell them to fuck off.